Hey everyone, I'd just like to showcase a logic system I made to sort Apotheosis crack gems from the other types of gems. So as you can see, I put in a crack gem, it's set into this chest, and this is useful because you can automatically send, you could put this to do chipped ones as well, and you can automatically send them to the salvager to turn into gem dust, because I personally don't want the crack gems. But yeah. This uses integrated dynamics and exactly 20 variables, so it's sort of complicated. And yeah, I'm just going to showcase how you do this. So in order to do this, you'll have to have a portable logic programmer or a normal logic programmer, a labeler if you want, this is optional, 20 variable cards, however many logic cables, item exporter, item interface, and then whatever your input and outputs are. So here I'll put this as my input, so I'll put the item interface on it, and this is my output, so I'll put the item exporter on it. You'll also need a variable store, which you have to connect to the network. Alright, so I'm going to explain how this works because it's sort of complicated. Alright, so here is basically what we want to have in, and this is written in Python. So I'm going to try to explain how this works. So predicate is a function that takes in an item and it returns a Boolean, and the Boolean is either true or false. So in this case, we're returning, we want to get the item's NBT data, and we want to get the NBT like within that, which is affix data, and then from that we want to get the string of rarity, and that will tell us whether it's a common, uncommon, rare, or I believe there's like different types of rarities like mythic or whatever. And we want to check to make sure it's common, which means it's cracked. And we also want to make sure that it's a gem, because if we only check for this, then it will take common items as well, and that would be bad. So yeah, we want to check to make sure the ID of the item is a gem, and this one doesn't actually run, obviously. So in order to do that, we need to use integrated dynamics, or at least that's the easiest way I found, because it allows you to access the NBT of different items. Let me turn that so it's a bit easier. NBT of different items using variable cards. So, for example, here are all the predefined functions we're going to be using. So there are these three: flip, apply, and conjunction, which I will explain when we use them. And then there are also these, which I've sort of typed out like representations of what they do. So we have, it sort of corresponds to the item.nbt here. Item nbt, and that is actually a command in here. If I go to operator, item nbt, that's a real thing. What it does is it takes in an item and it gives you the nbt data of that item back. So yeah, we'll be using that. We also need the get nbt, which basically filters the nbt you receive by a certain tag. So here it's called nbt compound value. They get a bit convoluted, but that's okay. So that takes in the NBT, obviously, that you want to filter, and it takes in the string that you're filtering, and it returns back NBT data. And then from that NBT data, once we sort of delve into the gems NBT, we need to get the rarity of the data. So we're going to be using NBT compound value string. So that takes in the same thing, NBT and a string, but instead of returning more NBT data, it returns the string. And that will tell us whether it's Apotheosis common or Apotheosis uncommon or rare or whatever. And we want to filter for common only. So we want to say if the rarity equals Apotheosis common, and we can say relational equals is also a operator. So if I go into here, relational equals, there we go. It just takes two values and outputs a Boolean, which is true or false. And then we finally have the item's ID, which is string unique name. Uniquely named is just items are uniquely named. You can put an item in there and it will return the string, which is the ID of the item. So we have to make all of these variable cards. I'm going to start with the four more simple ones, which are just strings. So how do you make strings? Well, we're going to need 4 cards for this. So the first one is going to be string, so you can just type string in here, and it will be affix data. Boom. And I like to label these because it is much easier to remember what they are when they have names, you can see up there. And then we will put another one, which will be rarity, right? And then I believe the next one is Apotheosis common, and I will label these afterwards. And then final one is Apotheosis gem. All right, so let's label these. So this is rarity, Apotheosis common, and Apotheosis gem. All right, we have all of those set properly. Perfect. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to flip the MBT compound value and compound value string operators, they're called. They're basically just functions. So I'm going to explain what flip does. So here I'm going to do it on the simple one. We have MBT compound value. So it takes in the MBT and the string, and this will do the same thing to both of them. So when we pass in these two values, we have to pass in MBT first. You can't just pass in the MBT on this one and end string on this one, because it will obviously mess up the order. So instead we can use the flip function to flip these two parameters. So we can pass in the string first and the MBT second. And why would you want to do that? That's literally a question I had. So the reason we want to do this is because we want to set this string. We know what this string is going to be. This string is going to be affix data, right? Because we want to get affix data from the MBT. However, we do not know what MBT is going to do, or going to be. We're going to get that from the item, using item MBT. So, and there's this function, let me explain this. There's this function which is called apply, and that allows you to partially fill a function. So we have this function, MBT compound value, and we're partially filling it with affix data. So we want to pass in affix data to the first parameter. That's what this apply function does, is it passes things in and returns a new function that has that already passed in. So since MBT compound value only has two parameters, and we've already passed in one of them, that means this new function that I'm gonna explain later, this one's only gonna have one parameter. All right, so we need to flip it, because if we pass in the string as the first value, it won't work. We have to pass, because MBT is here. So first we have to flip it into, I'm naming it flip MBT compound value, and then we can pass that into this apply function. So hopefully that made sense. All you need to know is, in order for it to work, we need to flip these two so that we can pass in the string before the MBT, because we're going to be passing in the MBT later. So let's make these two really quickly. And in fact, let's set up all of these, because we'll be needing them soon. So I'm going to set up these ones first, and then I'm going to make the flipped versions. So let's start with the operator item MBT. All right, and then we will go with MBT compound value. All right, that it should be MBT string MBT. And I should label these as I'm going through this, because yeah, that would be bad. And I'm actually gonna call it what I called it up here, because it's easier for me to read. So item.mbt, even though this is technically like bad practice, I'm pretty sure. And then here I called it nbt.getMBT. All right, let's get another one, and that will be compound value string. All right, this one outputs a string. So we will get nbt.get string. All right, and then we have equals and string unique name. Okay, I could probably do those. So equals, relational equals, and string unique name. Perfect. So let me name those really quick. Yeah, I do not remember this. Oh yeah, item.id, of course. All right, so now we have our fundamental functions, which these are the operators. These are the only operators we're going to be using, other than the ones that exist in here, like pipe and flip and apply, which I've written out here. So yeah, we've made this, and we've made these fundamental operators. So now we need to make our first compound operator, or I guess this one's just a flipped one. It's not that complicated. So we're going to flip the get MBT. Oops, gotta actually click on it. And we'll save that in a new one. And I will call this one flip nbt.get nbt. Hopefully that makes sense, the naming scheme. And I'm just going to put this over the other one. Yeah. All right, and then we'll do another flip, because we're going to need nbt.getString to be flipped as well. So I'll put this over here. So flip nbt.getString. Okay. And yeah, only 9 more. We're more than halfway done. So this is where it starts to get complicated, though. So the first thing we have to do is we have to fill out, as I've already explained, fill out nbt compound value, also known as get nbt, with the affix data that we already have, because it's going to be affix data every time. No matter what the item is, we always want to look at its affix data nbt. So in order to do that, we search for apply here. We put in our function that we want to fill out. And remember, the first one, since this is flipped, the first one's going to be our string. So we're going to put the string we want to fill it out with, which is affix data, into the slot. And now we can get this new function, or new operator, which is it already has affix data filled out. So this new operator, all we have to put in is nbt data, and it will automatically do this function using the affix data string. Yeah, that probably makes sense, hopefully. So let's name this, and this I named get affix data from nbt. That's, yeah, pretty self-explanatory. All right, so I'm going to save these ones that we're sort of custom making over here. All right, so next one, this should also be an apply. Actually, no, that's kind of going to come later. This one's going to be a pipe, but that's good. I can explain what a pipe is. So a pipe is even simpler than apply. All it does is it runs 2 functions on the same data. So let's say we have the item. The first thing we want to do to that item is we want to get the nbt, which we can do using this function or operator. And then once we have the nbt, we want to get the affix data from the nbt, which is what the function we just made. So in total, what it will do is it will take in the item, get the nbt from the item, and then get the affix data from the nbt, which we can sort of shorten to just getting the affix data from the item. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to pipe the item nbt, which is item.nbt, with the get affix data.nbt from nbt, and that will give us a new operator, custom operator, which is get affix data from item. Hopefully that makes sense. We basically just keep doing the same thing we've been doing, but using different functions. So now what we want to do is we have the affix data, so we can pass in the item and we get the affix data back. And I actually allowed it to display this in my editor. It shows that you get an item as the input and you get nbt back, that's good. That's what we want. But now we want to get a string back, and the string will be the rarity. So in order to do that, we can use the apply, and we will fill out this function, which this nbt compound value string takes in an nbt value, as you can see here, and a string to filter it. So this string that we're going to be filtering with is the rarity. We want the rarity. So, and it will return back whatever value that is. So we want to pre-fill this string, the rarity string, which is the same thing we did. Here. We want to pre-fill it. Here we did affix data, but here we want to pre-fill it with rarity. So yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to get an apply. We're going to put in the flipped version, because remember we have to fill out the first value, and we're going to put rarity in there. and this should make another operator, and we can call this one get rarity from affix data. Let's make sure that's the same thing I wrote here. Yeah, okay. Now we have all the things we need to get the rarity from the item. So all we need to do is get the affix data from the item, which we've already made, and then get the rarity from that affix data. So let's do that really quick. Oops, let me pick that up. Okay, this will be a pipe because we're doing two commands at the same time. So first we want to get, wait, what did I do here? Shoot, did I copy it? That's probably not good. It says do not copy this item, so I'm gonna destroy. Okay, I'm gonna destroy that. I don't know how that got there. That's interesting. Okay, so oops, this should be a pipe, not an apply. So we're gonna first get the affix data from the item, because remember we want to pass the item into this, and in out we want to get the rarity. So we'll get the rarity from affix data. So I'll put in another card, and that will give me another operator, and this will be get rarity from item. All right, so now this is our first one. We could put this in, and it would filter every, or it would return every rarity. If you pass in an item, it will return the rarity of that item. Well, it should if I have not done anything wrong. And we can actually see from the signature, it's called, that it takes in an item and it returns a string, and the string will be the rarity, hopefully. So now let's make a function or an operator to see whether a given rarity is common. And this is really easy. We just need to apply relational equals and pass in the common, the apotheosis common, as the first value. And that will basically make it so that whatever we pass into this function, it will see if we'll pass in a string to this function, and it will see whether that equals apotheosis common. So let's do that. Apply, and we will say the function it's using is equals, and the string is apotheosis common. So is rarity common? Oops, there we go. Is rarity common? Now let's go to the next one. So is item rarity common? And all we need to do there is we need to get the rarity from the item and then check if it's common. It's just step by step. So let's pipe. First we check get rarity from item. So we'll pass in the item, get the rarity, and then we'll have the rarity, we'll check if it's common. So now this variable, or this operator, will return a Boolean when we pass in an item of whether or not the rarity is common. So, or is item rarity common? Let's see if that's, yep, perfect. Okay, so now we have is item rarity common. And if we did not want to filter for gems, and if you're okay with scrapping swords and like armor that have the gray text, if that makes sense, like the same text as this cracked gem, then you're done. This is the predicate you need to use. However, we also want to filter for the gems, so we'll have to check to make sure that it's a gem. So let's do that really quickly. We'll have to use the same relational equals. So let's get an apply. We'll put equals in this, and this time we're checking to make sure it's a gem. So if we pass in an item, or sorry, if we pass in a string to this, if the string is equal to apotheosis gem, then it will return true. So that's what this operator is going to do. So is ID gem should be called that, yeah. All right, so we now have this operator that we pass in an ID, and it will check to make sure it's a gem. And I'm going to get rid of all these things really quick. I have, let's see, I'm just going to delete. I have a little thing here, I forgot. It's okay. All right. So yeah, we have this is ID gem now, and we're going to pipe the string unique name, which if you remember, that gets the ID of the item. So we're first going to get the ID of the item, and then we're going to check to make sure that ID is the gem ID, if that makes sense. So let's get a pipe. We're going to put in, where is it? Yeah, we're first going to get the item ID, and then we're going to check to make sure that ID is the gem. So we'll get that card, and we'll say is item gem. Oops. Yep, perfect. All right, so now we have the is item gem, and our final one is we just need to combine these. If it's a gem and its rarity is common, then we want to let it through the filter. So in order to do that, we need this last function called a conjunction, and all that this does is it takes two functions or two operators, and it says it basically runs the item that comes through it through both operators. So it will first check if it's a gem, and then if it is a gem, then it will check if it's common. So yeah, let's do that really quickly. So conjunction, it looks a bit weird. It's dot and dot. So yeah, but it shouldn't be that bad. So is item gem, that's the first one, and then is item rarity common. And we'll put our last variable card in there. And we'll say, we could either call this predicate, but that's a boring name. So is item common gem is a better way of describing it. And then boom, we have our final predicate. So let's test this out, and we put this in the export items predicate section. So it will say, hey, we can't find your variables. And that's because you need to put all your variables into your variable store. So it doesn't really matter what order you put them in. I'm just going to put them in the order we did them. And then, as long as you have this in here, it should be a green check mark. If it isn't, try repeating the steps. And I'll actually, I'll release another video that just shows how to do it with no explanation. So you'll be able to watch that if you want to just redo it. So now let's put in a chipped gem. It shouldn't go through. And then the cracked one, as you can see, it gets pulled out into the other chest. So yeah, thanks for watching. And I will record that other video that just explains how to do it really quickly.